All right, let's get started. Everybody who needs to be here is here. And I want to ask if you could put yourself on mute during this process. And there will be times to share comments as well. I know we may have a few new people here, and I will go over a few of the simple rules. I took them out of the deck, but my only request out of this in UX mentorship is if you participate, the cost is to help two other people. You don't need to give me anything. I do this because I love doing it. But I would love to see you participate by helping two other people in this group in some way. It can be very, very simple. I leave that up to you. There will be opportunities to ask questions or share observations today. Please keep yourself on mute. But if you do share, please introduce yourself with your name so we know who's talking. And also, I try to encourage ambition. And I think today is a really good example of some very strong ambition by the group that participated in this process. We had a design challenge over the last 2 weeks where my company actually created the challenge, or my company allowed me to create it, where we actually redesigned a pipeline canvas editor. And it was a fantastic process. And today we're going to be reviewing their work as well as announcing the winners of the process. There was a $200 prize attached to it. I don't like doing anything for free if I can, but my company allocated a small fund. And we had some phenomenal, I'm telling you, phenomenal ideas and a really great learning opportunity. I'm going to try and create more design challenges in the future. And I encourage you to participate. It's really, as you'll see, we saw some phenomenal work, and the value of it is you walk away with a portfolio piece. This just happened to be an instance where it benefited my company, but I'm going to try and find other opportunities as well. The reason why I advocate for that is your portfolio is your resume. It really is the thing that makes you stand out. You may have lots of experience, but really your experience is shared in your portfolio, specifically through your use cases. And today you'll see there's a lot of really great work around developing some really good use cases in portfolio pieces. So to give you a little understanding of the challenge, my company is StreamSets, so they were going to redesign the StreamSets editor canvas. The pain points to understand what each individual was working with was I gave them a framework that the toolbar is confusing. The tabs take up valuable real estate on the canvas, and users find it initially confusing when they first onboard. I unfortunately did not get to participate. Our product is 6 years old, and I didn't get to participate in the design of it. But we are going to get to redesign it in March, so I'm really excited about that. So this is the first step that we're doing in that process. Our user is a pipeline engineer who understands complex solutions, so they can understand complex variables and figuring things out. That's what they do for a living. So our persona was someone who does understand complexity, but we need to simplify it. They find it initially confusing and hard to understand. Once they get over their learning curve, it's kind of a steep learning curve. They do find it exceptional. They like all the variables. We tend to design for virtually every single use case in our technology, but we need to simplify. And we have some really nice, elegant solutions that were created. I provided everyone with an initial Figma file with our assets as well as all of the icons. But I did give them leeway to design anything new. They could come up with, they couldn't redesign the directory, that needed to stay the same. I wanted to also say this is a real world challenge for a real world company. So this opportunity is going to have impact. So I found some amazing ideas in this process. All of the participants did absolutely fantastic. To give you a little bit of an understanding of what our product looks like, this is what they were redesigning. So this is our toolbar up here. It's not intuitive. We do have hovers and tooltips, but it's not laid out well. It's not organized well. And this is our tab bar. So you can scroll this tab, or you can move this tab bar up and down. On our product, typically, these are called stages, where what our user does is they assemble stages from external cloud partners. They transform the information and then they deposit that information, typically in a local data lake or a data host that may be on another on-prem or cloud solution as well. What they do is they assemble these stages in sequences and then they configure all of those down here. The problem is that these lists, these tabs, literally can scroll for days. So there are some tabs that can scroll on and on and on. So it becomes a process of where the user is always scrolling up and down on these tabs. So we're trying to figure out, are there ways to simplify that process. So we had 6 participants: Talia Buckbender, Sue, and Sue, please forgive me if I get this wrong. It's Makuzvi or Makuvsi, Amma Bonsu, Cameron Schuster, Feifei Dang, and Daria Kotslowska. I can't tell you guys how impressed I was with this entire process. One, because they all showed significant ambition. We had a process where we submitted our first review on Monday. So they had a week to design and they were given all the assets they needed to contribute to the project. They submitted on Monday and then we did a review. And from there, I gave them feedback. It was really an organized group feedback. And then they submitted again yesterday. And this morning we picked winners. So to jump into the announcements, first, I want to call out an honorable mention. Talia Buckbender participated. She's brand new. She's just getting started. She's got a ton of ambition and I love it. But I want to actually congratulate her for her work. And I want to specifically call out one thing that she did, which was a dark mode. Nobody else did that. And we talked a little bit about it in the design review. And for her second review, she actually presented a dark mode of the version. So I want to allow her to share that with you. And you can see the complexity of how it adds tremendous value. And I'm totally going to steal this or use this idea. We've actually talked about it in our company and she executed on it really well. So Talia, I'm going to let you share and present your information or your dark mode. So why don't you share your screen?
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Give me 1 second to pull it up.
No worries.
Screen. Let me know if you guys can't see. You can see it? Okay, so yeah, this is my redesign, and basically I prioritized canvas space over everything. And the dark mode, I added it over here as a little moon icon because when I was redesigning it, it kind of hurt my eyes a bit. So I had to make it a little easier. And there we go.
And I just want to call this out. It was something we briefly mentioned and Talia jumped on it and created it. And I think it was an exceptional idea. And I just wanted to call it out as an honorable mention because she really worked very hard on this. And there's a lot of work that goes into this to create a dark mode version. And she did the work. So congratulations, Talia. Fantastic job. It was something that is very much needed. And she kind of put it in the back of my head that this is something we're definitely going to use. Okay, so the next is in third place was Cameron. Cameron has such an enthusiasm about his work and he really stepped up, created a ton of revisions in his second version. And really, I want to congratulate him because he, in third place, his work was very clean. He really thought through all of the interactions with the prototype. So he took the prototyping to a really well done degree. I was really impressed with how much he really interacted. So Cameron, I want to give you an opportunity to share your prototype. You can walk us through all of the elements that you showed us yesterday, so everybody can get a good flavor of what you did.
Awesome, Jonathan. Thank you for the introduction. Let me share my screen here. Alrighty. Okay, so I wanted to briefly go over what the pipeline editor canvas looked like prior to my edits. And then I'll go over the changes that I made with my revision. So this is what it currently looks like. And some of the edits in place. I guess I'll first start talking about the toolbar here. I reorganized some of the icons in ways that I thought the user would make more sense as opposed to before. So starting from the left here, this is the data collections icon, and then it was also repeated over here on the right as a dropdown. So I decided to just move it to the left here next to the pipeline name where they're able to select that data collections. And then the draft here with the dropdown, that didn't change much. Edit mode, I made that a bit darker so you can notice which mode you're in. And then I have the compare and history icon lumped together there, as well as I turn the publish a green color to show that, that is an action to publish something. I added text to the new job icon here to make it a bit more clear what you were adding with that plus icon. And then I also edited the shape of the, I guess, error or warning icon here to a circle instead of a triangle. And then some of these, most of these stayed in the same place, but like I said, I just lumped them a little into different categories. And then some of the, okay, why is it in here? Okay, well, I'll keep going. All right, so the origin bar did change here. Instead of a full width, I shortened the width of it here, and then updated icon there, origin missing. You go to select your origin here. Go ahead and there's a little hover animation there to indicate what you're about to click on. And then the tool or the, is this a stage bar, Jonathan? Is that the correct terminology? Yes. The stage bar changes, showing that you did select an origin and now there's an open stream. So you're able to select a processor, a destination, or fragment. And I also wanted to show that this is open stream. There's nothing connected here by a dashed yellow line, the same color as the warning icon. Go ahead and select a destination here. Go recycle bin. And then the stage bar changes to green, showing that there's a valid connection, as well as the arrow goes from dashed to solid and is now green as well. Going back here, I wanted to allow the user to delete stages by hovering over the stage here and then clicking the X here. And for an origin, that's most of the time will be a starting point. So I wanted to have an alert message notifying the user that they are about to delete the origin, and so someone doesn't accidentally misclick that X when they're hovering. And hitting yes will save the changes and go back to the origin bar being here. I think that's everything.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to call out of why I felt like Cameron really did really well is he has a very clean design. It's one of the things in UX that I specifically notice about his work is it's very interesting for designers sometimes to go over on the form rather than the function. In UX, one of the reasons why we wireframe is because we're trying to deal with the limited amount of content on the page. So you try and get everything you need. And I really liked the way Cameron created a clean version of the tabs on the right-hand side. So it's very simple and elegant looking. And that is easy for users to adapt to. So one of the things that designers can sometimes do is over design and Cameron really created a very simple, clean design. He didn't go too far off brand, which is okay in this project. He kind of kept it in the same family, and I really appreciated that. So well done, Cameron. And I want to open it up if anybody has any observations that they want to share, compliments or kudos. Anybody have anything? Anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I really like that you matched the color of like the yellow with the yellow, so you know, kind of like reference what's going on, and like you can tell between the different steps. I think that's a very smart way of doing that to make sure the user knows like the connection.
Yeah, thank you. That was my thought process behind that, is kind of letting them know with color when something is completed or when there's still an error with something.
Anybody else? Okay. So well done, Cameron. And one of the last things I'll call out is Cameron really spent a lot of time updating and coming up with some really cool revisions. It's the thing that I want to call out to this project again is these are showcase pieces. These are he really shared his thought process, and the goal out of these projects is to help you create a use case that you can share. And the value of it is these are real world companies. So he can say he's done this for a real company. It's not just a puff piece, although there's value in puff pieces where you've created it. This is a real company, so it's a real problem. And they actually, in this project, I did not give them purposefully every bit of research I had, because that's the more common case scenario when you're working in an enterprise or even a startup. You don't have a lot of research, and you don't have access to getting the research in the time that you need to design. I think they all did exceptionally well with that limitation, and I gave them a very simple framework. And Cameron did a really good job of that. So well done, Cameron. So the next person is Daria. Daria actually created some fantastic, absolutely fantastic onboarding materials. Her designs were exceptional. And I really want to give kudos to her work. She really upgraded herself from her first version to the second version. She took it to the next mile. And I thought it was an exceptional development process. So kudos, Daria. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen and show us your work?
Hi everyone, thank you so much, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna share my screen here. Okay, so in the design reviews that we had, we briefly talked about how this software is a little confusing for first-time users, and there wasn't really any kind of onboarding experience at the time. So this is what I designed for first-time users that are using the software for the first time. And the
before you
blue
go
here,
forward,
yeah.
I want to call out something that Daria did. So if you notice, that is animated. That icon, those graphics are animated, and she went out and found a plugin that we posted in Slack to actually animate. I thought that was such a really cool, simple touch that I wanted to really call out. So she went the extra mile. She found resources that added value. So well done, Dari.
Thank you. So the blue that I used here, it was in the original software, it was used as a color to highlight an active tab. It wasn't used much, but I just kind of went with it and I used it a lot more in my redesign to just bring in some color. So yeah, this is the welcome screen. And then if you click next, I specifically grayed out most of the screen because there's a lot going on. So I wanted the users to see only the things that I wanted them to see, which was these two things. And I talked about this briefly, but I kind of try to follow UX laws so that the user isn't doesn't have too much information on the screen at one time. It's just very short pieces of information. They can read them really quickly. And I put in 2 pieces per screen. So it only takes a few clicks to get through all the screens, because I feel like the more screens you have to go through, the likelihood of you just skipping the whole thing increases. So this is the next screen, just highlights different parts. And then it brings you to the actual working area, where I still have a little box with advice. So it's telling you this is where to go, this is your first step. And then you have to double click, and here you can select an origin to begin your pipeline. And one thing that I changed from the original was there was 2 options to add the origins, which I thought was a little confusing for users, especially if they're newcomers, if there's 2 ways to do one thing. So I just stay with the toolbar. And I also added the option for users to be able to type in the origin that they're looking for, so they don't have to scroll through the whole list every time they want to add a new one. Then the biggest thing that I changed was the navigation. I moved it from the bottom of the screen to the right side of the screen. And instantly when you open the software, it's open. So again, that saves you some clicks. You can see straight away what you want to see. And the horizontal navigation kind of gives you more space to see things as well. So you don't have to scroll as much to see all the options. You can see more at the same time. And again, I created kind of interactions for all the buttons, so you can see exactly where you are. And then if you want to close this and see more of your canvas and your working space, you can close this really quickly and then just click to open it back up again. So another thing that I added, when you add an origin, the toolbar changes to blue. So it gives you feedback that the action you've done has been completed successfully, and it adds the element to the origin. I also changed the font that was used here. I think this one is a little easier to read for users as well. And then when you click it, again, it highlights it in that same blue to show you that an action has been taken. And what else did I change? I reorganized the toolbar here and just added a little nested menu. And I also changed the notification button here. In the original software, it was bright red, and the red wasn't used anywhere else, so it really stood out to users. So I just added a little dot so it's not as distracting and it doesn't take away from whatever is going on here. Just another interaction that I have here, and I think that's it. Actually, there was one thing I forgot to mention. I know in the original version it said origin missing, and I think we talked about this in the design review, how that kind of makes you feel like you've done something wrong without even having done anything at all. So I just changed it to add origin. So it just lets you know what to do.
Yeah, so in our product, we have one sort of product problem that we're aware of in product or in the product team, is when a user adds a stage, it starts out telling them you have errors, and it's very disruptive. And so what Talia is trying to change is the process in which that happens. We are going to address that in this review because we're finally tackling the designer. But again, I call that out because that was a good touch of what she added to the process. She called that out and made sure that how do we make that a better experience for the user? So well done.
Yep.
So any observations? Who'd like to call out what they see and enjoy?
I can go.
Go ahead, Rachel.
So for everyone, I'm Rachel. I really like how you added the collapsing sidebar. It reminds me a lot of the Adobe tools, and it really seems like an easy way to have the navigation that's always open on the far side, but then be able to switch between menus and have more canvas screen space. So yeah, it's a good use of something that I'm immediately like, oh, I know how to use that.
And that
Thank
is
you.
a good point. Daria, didn't you do your research on Adobe and that's where you
Yeah,
got your
yeah.
information? She called you out on it. No, it's good. And here's what I will say, just as something I've said this probably 3 or 4 times in all of these sessions. Rip off as much as you want. Okay, get good ideas from other companies, because if you're looking at Adobe, you know they've got literally millions of users, so you know that education exists in the back of their mind, and you can leverage that. So it's okay to mimic what other people do. If you find a really good way of a user, you do not have to create new experiences every time. Originality is great, but it's not required ever. So it's okay to get inspiration from your favorite softwares. If you actually know that your persona uses that software, it's okay to do research to learn from that and say, well, I like the way they did this. It's okay to mimic the process. There's nothing wrong with that. So there's no rule against that. There's no ethic against that. Learn from the best and mimic that, and take the best from where you think it will serve your user or persona. Anybody else for Daria? Any feedback?
Yeah, I can bring something up. I don't know if you went over this on Monday or Thursday, but I really like how you mentioned that the red was only being used on the notification bell. And instead of having that be a focal point, you change that to a more familiar icon, for me at least, with a little dot above that to show that there's something underneath that bell.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch. I like that. And honestly, I have never noticed that. And probably because I'm in knee deep in other projects, but I literally, you call that out and made it, because red is an attractor. Red is one of the strongest colors
Yeah.
in the color wheel, and it is the first attractor. So if you use red, it means warning or danger or needs your attention. So, and notifications are okay to do that, but I like the subtlety of it because it creates, I think, a little bit more balance. So well done. All right, thank you, Daria.
Thank you.
Go ahead and close your screen. And now I'd like to announce the winner is Feifei. I have to honestly say, when Feifei first presented, we were all stunned. And I mean that in the best possible sense. Um, Feifei really took this challenge to a whole nother level. And I was blown away by her work, not just in her designs, although I really liked her designs. They were clean and elegant, but elevated. But I'll let her explain her entire process, because she literally gives you all of the thinking process from step one all the way to the completed design. Um, and she used this opportunity to create an absolutely amazing portfolio piece. So kudos to Feifei. I am absolutely blown away. I'll let her share her screen and you'll see what we're talking about. So Feifei, take it away.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Feifei. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so when I get the challenges, although we only have fragmented like information about the product and we don't really get to know the user, but I still started with the research and the persona. So the persona that Jonathan gave us was a first-time user with engineering background, which means they can understand the logic of each tool that the editor provides. So I kind of started to brainstorming the user's wants and need. And based on my research and also a couple interviews with my engineer friend, I found that they need to understand what does each icon represent and know what tasks can be done, know where they are in any step. They need to know the status of the file in any step, and need to know where to get help and need error prevention because they're engineer and they don't want any of their product have any errors. And also they will prefer that really precise and efficient flow. And then I take it to a further step. I believe that they will also need an interface that can accommodate different work style. So we need to let the user know there are options for that. So based on that, I'm thinking that they need an adaptive interface. So can consider the various use of computer screen, also for the minimum situation. Then based on this, I create a user goals based on what I research. So the goal will be short learning curve, quickly understand the structure of the layout, easy navigation, error prevention, and a adaptive workspace. So I create this how might we questions. How might we redesign the pipeline editor interface in a more intuitive way and provide more progressive guidance to shorten the first time user's learning curve? And based on that, I create a simple high-level user flow because I don't have many information about that. So I kind of like create a very high-level user flow to help myself to structure the following design. And also I identify under each flow what design opportunity and what user goals will be, and to help myself to understand like what should I focus in the following steps. And then I started to identify the current design problem. I find that some of the icons status are not clear, and the information on the toolbar is lack of a hierarchy. And the navigation canvas is hard to navigate when the project becomes very complex, which means there will be so many blocks on the canvas. And in the panels, I feel like users have to scroll and edit all the information, and it's not friendly for a long list. And also the information here is not clear, and the hierarchy is not clear either. Oh, sorry. Based on this, I started with some lo-fi screens. So with these screens, I defined a high level usage of different areas of the interface because I don't want myself to stuck into the current design. So I kind of like have myself define like which area can be used for certain functions. And then I kind of like organized and developed the lo-fi screen I had before to started to think of the user flow. So these screens are organized based on a very simple user flow that the first time user create their first pipeline project. And then based on that, I started to create my mid-fidelity screens. So I started to think about what components do I need in this interface and how to group these icons into a structural way, because all the toolbar and the icons we have is not organized in a certain way. So I'm kind of thinking like, how can I group them into like in a more meaningful way? For example, like these are all the icons that related to the project you are doing, and this is in a more for more high level information, for example like the name of the file and the version of the file, and these are something that related to outside, like for example when you need to share or look at the libraries, then this kind of action will go to this bar. And based on the mid-fi screens, I started to think about the color palette. So these are the current color we got from Jonathan. And I'm thinking that color is really important to match and support the design goals. So I developed a new color palette here. So the darker blue will be the primary color of the whole interface. And this lighter blue is gonna be the secondary color to highlight some button. And this bluish green will be the accent color to highlight some special information. And the yellow will be tips and hint. And red is the warning and arrow. And these are some subtle color for background. And also I'm thinking that we will have some prompt from the system. So all the system information from the prompt will be 50% of the primary color. So this is my first version of redesign. So I provide some hover hint for the user. So when you first into this interface, you will be able to hover to this icons to figure out like what are these icon represent. And you will be able to click the title name, and then you can duplicate the pipeline file or delete the pipeline or even export the file. And if you click the version, you will be able to see current version is version 1, and you can view the version history and also view the recent updates. And the same is here. You can hover and see what are these icons represent. And on the top will be some information system hint that telling you that, oops, nothing is here, there, then let's start with adding origin. And the same is here. This is another level of hint and tips. So when you are not sure what to do, the system will always provide you some kind of guidance to help you to the next step. And I also changed the navigation to a little map because I found that when the project become really big, it's hard to navigate. So you will be able to use this little square to navigate to any part of the design and then just zoom in to make the whole navigation experience much easier. And also I allow the user to minimize the screen, like, and in this case, like they can collapse this setting and they also can also collapse this navigation so they can have a minimized interface. And then if you started to select your first origin, instead of a list, I use some card highlighting the name of the origin and also some important information for the origin. So the user will know that which one to select. And I also put the common use or recent use origin on top. And then it's the rest of the origin list at the bottom. So you can easily choose the origin you used recently, or you can also search the origin if you already know the name. And then if you select this, you will see that the panel is expanded and you can start to type the information you need for this origin. And when you finish this, you can select another tabs that you need to edit. And you will see there's a indicator here telling you that you already fill in general information, and then you can start with the next step. So the same here. And the information up there will change. Like, for example, like in this stage, it will tell you that processor is connected to the origin. So please select a destination. So this is my first round of design. And based on this design, and I did 2 simple usability testing. So the goal of the testing was to find out the learnability and discoverability of my new interface and whether or not the redesign solved users' problem and help them achieve the task goal intuitively. And also I want to reveal any usability problems. And based on the goals, I also developed some research questions to help myself to understand how easy can they understand the structure? Can they find the information they need? What issues do they have? And can they recover from the error quickly? And how is the overall experience while using the product as a first-time users? And then based on this research question and goal, I developed 3 simple scenarios for them and also a couple of tasks that related to that scenario for them to use that interface. And then based on the testing, I have some findings that user understood the basic logic behind the layout of the interface. They find the pop-out hint very helpful, but it would be better if the text can be shown under the icon all the times. And they think the navigation map will be helpful when the pipeline project become really complicated. And also they like getting status and tips from the system, but will prefer that the status and tip bar only at. And the cons about the was user thought complicated in the completed indicator on the tab editor was not obvious enough, and they couldn't realize the version and file name are clickable. Thus, they didn't expect any more tools are nested under the version and file name. And they wasn't able to tell the differences between the tab, like these different tabs. And also one user was confused about how to minimize the tab panel. And he thought the up arrow here means previous step and was trying to drag the panel to the right to minimize it. So I put this finding into the interface I did to help myself understand like what was the problem and how could I solve them. So based on the findings, I did a couple iteration. The first, I redesigned the drop-out windows here. So the new version of the drop-down windows, you will be able to select, you want to select an origin or processor or destination. And in the original design, I didn't color code the blocks. But when I observed one of the user use his own pipeline editor, I find that it's necessary to add color code to help them quickly identify what is the origin, what the process, and what is the destination. And also I combined these two system tips into only one to prevent the confusion. And to this editor panel, I found the original design was lack of hierarchy of information. Like for example, you can see the configuration and this subcategory all looks the same. So I want to create a clearer hierarchy and also help them to make the whole flow more smooth. So I highlight the top level of the category, and then I highlight the current tabs that the user are in. And then I kind of like lower the priority of the rest of the tabs to indicate that, okay, you are in this area and you need to edit the information under this, and these are the next step that you need to do. So this is the new design. So you can see the hierarchy in this panel are more clear than before, and you can have more options here to select which types of blocks you want to select. And also on the top, the information bar is gone, and now you will only have one underneath. And then I started to think about the next step of the process. Like when the pipeline project complicated, you will need to clearly understand what is the status of each pipeline. So in this case, I'm showing that when the processor have problem, you will clearly see a warning here, and then the destination connect to that processor will be disabled. So you can see it become a dashed line and gray out, and also the card connected to that processor will be gray out too. So then this is what I learned. I learned how to work with limited resources. I need to understand the trade-off I made. And I learned from research and observation, because there are so many inspiration were from observing my user using their own pipeline editor. And also because of the trade-off and the observation I did, I learned how to accept mistakes and continue from it. So that's it.
So observations, what stands out to you guys? Actually, Feifei, why don't you keep your screen up in case anybody
Okay.
wants to look at that. So I want to encourage you guys to be helpful to everybody else in providing feedback, especially during these kinds of opportunities. What stands out to you? Why don't you go back to the previous screen with your final? It's probably a good place to start.
First, I think you did a really good job. Everything is very nicely laid out. You demonstrated what's most important, where you want where you want us to view what we think is most valuable from the information you're trying to give us. Also, I like how you organize your information. It's really shows, what's most important. It's not too much to the eye to see. So I think you did a really great job on that.
So let me stop Shaylin for a second, just so you can all know who Shaylin is. Shaylin is a recruiter. So her understanding of this it holds a lot of weight. Shaylin, what do you look for when you are seeing, what stands out to you when you see a good portfolio piece?
When I see a good portfolio piece, I really want to make sure, again, kind of what you guys were just saying, there's not so much going on the screen. You don't want it too cluttered. Again, we're making it an easier experience to get the information we need. So what we're looking for is your design process, but not just showing, okay, here are some deliverables, but why did you make those design choices? So that's really what I'm trying to look for, but also, okay, what is your process? What did you do? I mean, I believe that's something that you mentioned earlier. So I don't want to reiterate too much on that, but really going in and making sure you have a focus of where you're trying to go in terms of design. If you want to go more that UX route and stay focused into, interaction deliverables, make that your focus within your portfolio. If you have so much going on and you don't have a clear direction, that can really hinder your chances for a role, because the manager doesn't really know what you really want and where your main skills lie.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why, I mean, obviously the breadth and the depth of this one was truly elevated. Feifei really spent the time to give us her entire thought process. That is one of the keys that I look for as a hiring manager. I want to not just see you're a good designer. I want to see how you thought about solving the problems. And what Feifei has really done is given us a real clear pathway to see the entire process. Now, she went way overboard from the design challenge, but she benefits because she actually now has a really killer portfolio piece as a use case study. She's given us all the steps, all the way to research and finding and iterations that I thought were exceptional. I actually really appreciated her understanding of on the right sidebar that she looked at the interactions and relationships between all of the tabs as well as the clusters. So those were really well, she thought through the color process. And it's not that those are always required in all use cases that you're presenting to get a job. It's that they show the breadth of what you can do. So when you go through your use cases, think about how do you show the stuff that resides underneath the surface? Why did I make that decision? What did I learn in research and testing? What did I learn after the first design review? Because we actually, all of these changes happened between Monday and Thursday. So she went back and said, okay, with this in mind, I'm going to actually do some more testing and learned I need better interactions between my right side panel. But she exposed that to us and showed us that entire process. So uh, it's something to think about as you're developing your use cases in your portfolios. Think about how you can elevate them, not just by design, but by giving the thought process. And it was very simple. You got the highlights. Like one of the things that I always tell people is when you're developing a use case, try and cut your text to the absolute minimum because I'm not reading it. I liked the way she did this here, which is she gave me the highlights. So I can piece and grab and see, oh, this process over here had this problem. This is how I solved it, rather than giving me a long textual reading of it. She pinpointed the things that she wanted me to know. So well done, Feifei. So one or two more. What else stands out to you guys in terms of what are you learning through this process by seeing this? What stands out to you guys?
Hey, this is Vacha.
Hi, Vacha.
I really enjoyed the fact that in the beginning she took all the things that she saw that was problems and pinpointed them. It kind of gives a good base to where she could go and how she could develop those sections.
Yep. Yeah, and it sets the table for how the rest of the project goes. It's easy, and I'm actually guilty of this. It's one of the things that I have to temper myself. It's very easy to jump into design. And instead, she thought through, okay, what do I need to know that informs the design? What problems am I solving? What do I know about my user? How do I empathize? And it's very easy to skip over those things. And once you have years, like I have 18 months with my company of understanding the user, I know my persona really, really well. I've probably interviewed 50 data engineers. So I know them really well. I can empathize very simply. But even still going through that process of identifying all the findings, identifying all the pain points, identifying all of the clear things that we need to be addressed, and then connect them to the designs, I think she did an outstanding job. So I want to thank all of you and all the participants and all of the guests here today. Thank you for joining us. And this has been an absolute fantastic process. We're going to try and do this again. I have a leadership team in UX Mentorship that's actually developing a couple ideas, and we're hoping to do this more. So I hope you can participate. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.